Okay, so we're going to dive into an LFO sequencer that I've created in Serum 2. You can see we've got the Serum 2 window open here, and we've got an Ableton MIDI track armed here, and then we've titled it LFO sequencer. So this is a sound that I've created playing around with some of the drop-down analog wavetable instruments that you've got in these oscillators up here, and also using the LFO and the envelope down here. And the LFO setting is one that I've selected that gives it a kind of a sequencer feel. I'm going to give you a quick blast of the sound so you can hear what it sounds like. Cool, so I was playing around with the cutoff there in terms of the filter frequency to kind of filter the sound, which sounded quite cool. Okay, so what have we got going on? So we've got the oscillator window open, and we've got the sub armed, that's down at -2 octaves, and that's a sine wave. We have got oscillator A with the wavetable selected. And we've got Monster 7 SL, which is actually a spectral sound about halfway down. We've got the octaves at -2. Wavetable position is at 46. The phase is at 104. The random is on 0. We've got 8 unison voices, detuned to almost 0.10, blended at just under 50%. And the level is at 85%. Moving on to oscillator 2, we have got the BS2 Filthy selected, which is an analog sound, about a third of the way down. We've got oscillator -1, we've got the wavetable set at 44, 8 voices again, 188 on the phase and 67 on the random, detuned to about 0.02. Blended to 50% or thereabouts, and about halfway up in the level, about 50%. On oscillator 3, we've got the anti-stasis, which is a digital sound this time, right at the top there. So you just click on the drop down, and then it's the one right at the top. We've got the octaves at +1. We've got the wavetable position at 44. We've got the phase at 180, random at 0, 4 unison voices, detuned to 0.02, blended to 50%, and again the level at 50%. The noise level there is in blue, but we haven't actually got the noise turned on, so that isn't affecting anything. We've got filter 1, and we've got the resonance at about 50%. Cutoff is at around about 25 to 30 hertz, but as I said, you can use the cutoff parameter to kind of mess around with the filtering of the sound, so something like this. So that sounds pretty cool, and we've got the drive at 16%, 100% in the mix. Yeah, so that's the filter. Nothing on filter 2. We've just got oscillators A, B and C running through filter 1. Onto the envelope filter. This isn't currently running through the cutoff. We've got the attack at 0.0 milliseconds, so very high end attack there. Hold is at 862 milliseconds. Decay is at 163. Sustain is at -4.9 decibels, and release is at just over a second. In the LFO filter section, and this is the bit that's giving it that kind of sequencer sound. So we've got the rate 1/2, but in terms of the LFO setting, what I've actually done is I've selected one of the random patterns. So if you go to the drop down and then go to random flat, you can scroll through a number of kind of created random sounds, arrive on the one that you kind of like the most. I really like this one, but you know, if you were to flick through, you can see the window changes and it just alters the sound. So you might end up with something like this. Just kind of speeds that up. Oops, is that going to go back? Okay, yeah, so you can click on it again and it'll bring you up with the next random sound. They're all pretty cool, but you just keep scrolling through until you get one that you like. Yeah, I kind of like the ones where it's a little bit uneven, there's a bit more going on. We've got 8x8 here in terms of the grid. Nothing down here apart from the smooth bit. So if you increase this, you kind of smooth out the notes. So it sounds a bit like this. Almost a kind of legato, kind of smoothing out the gaps between the notes. But I've kind of got that about halfway at 50%. It's on polyphonic voices at 16 on the voicing, so we haven't got a mono setting ticked on this. Finally, we've got a couple of effects. So in the effects section, we've got soft saturation. The EQ is turned off. We've literally got that in with drive at 50% and 50% in the mix. And we've got a very low end, a kind of a low level filtering of the high end of the sound. So we've got the cutoff at 5,718 hertz, and it's just taking some of the high end off, and that again is panned centrally and is in the mix at 84%. That's the sound. So I think if you were to play around with this, you might want to have a look at the LFO settings down here, kind of have a flick through some of these custom presets and maybe play around with the smoothness here. The other thing you could look to do is drop the envelope filter onto the cutoff like this. Just roll that back. And it just gives you that extra kind of filtering using the envelope section. But obviously if you wanted to take that off, you could remove modulator and just have the LFO attached to it there. So that's it. I hope that was helpful. If you found that useful and you've dropped it in your tracks and you're enjoying with the sound, or you've had a play around with it and you found the video useful, please like the video and consider subscribing to the channel.